Well, last night on 18WJTS Inform, we talked about electric pressure cookers. Well, we're going to continue that conversation with Jan Dougan, who is the Health and Human Sciences educator with Purdue Extension in Du Bois County. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio teaching us new things. And we talked a little bit about how to purchase or what to look for when you buy an electric pressure cooker on last night's show. But today we're going to talk about kind of like how it works as opposed, I guess, to the old way. And we're going to maybe some recipes or some ideas of how to cook.
Sure.
How do you use an electric pressure cooker?
So there's a number of great things that you can do in a pressure cooker. And, you know, a lot of people think, first of all, they think, well, meat, you know, I can do meat. So when you think of less tender cuts of meat that are actually less expensive cuts of meat, you can pressurize those in the cooker and they come out tender and yummy. You know, a lot of people might not think about breakfast foods. You can do oatmeals. Or desserts. You can do, I've done a cheesecake in there that turned out wonderful. Now the challenge with doing a cheesecake in them is you're going to have to find a 7-inch round pan, and they're sort of a tight commodity right now. So they're difficult to find. You might have to search for that a little bit, but you have to have the pan that fits down into your cooker, that has a little bit of space around the outside of it. To use, but they turn out beautifully. One of the things that most people are really surprised about that I really enjoy doing in my pressure cooker is hard cooking eggs, because it doesn't save you any time, but you get an egg that is very easy to peel, and it is done properly if you follow your time guides and your directions. You won't have that green ring around your egg yolk, and so they turn out wonderfully. So, you know, there's soups, there's stews, there's rice. It could replace your rice cooker if you want to, you know, do a lot of rice in it, and the rice just came out really beautiful. You know, when you do it on the stovetop, sometimes it gets a little too dry, or sometimes it doesn't get quite dry enough, and it just turned out beautifully. So there are so many different ways, foods and things that you can cook in it. It makes it yummy. But how does it work?
Well, yeah, let's find out about that, because I know it takes some time for it to heat up, and if it says it takes 2 hours to make this, you got to also account for the fact that it has to heat up. Is that right? Or build up that pressure?
Sure. So what happens is that you have to cook with water. You have to use some kind of liquid, and you need to check your care use guide to make sure what the minimum amount and the maximum amount of liquid is that you should use in your pressure cooker. And you know, when people are new to using the electric pressure cookers, I strongly encourage you to follow a recipe that's designed for the cooker so that you will have success. There are recipes that come with your cooker. There are recipes online that you can access. There are Facebook groups that talk about this. There's Pinterest boards that have recipes, but they've all been developed for the electric pressure cooker. So, you know, you're going to be guaranteed more success if you use those recipes that are designed, rather than, you know, when we cook at the stove, a lot of times we throw a little bit of this in and a little bit of that in, but, you know, until you really, and there are ways you can convert your recipes, but if you're just learning, it's really a good idea to follow a recipe and follow directions. And before you do anything at all after purchasing an electric pressure cooker, I want you to read your care use guide. I know that we oftentimes think we don't need to do that. We can just start right in, plug it in, turn it on, and go. But it's really important to read your care use guide, because there's a lot of safety tips in there. There's directions that you need to be able to follow. There's even, in most of the guides, there's going to be a test that you can do where you put some water into your pressure cooker. You put the lid on, making sure the lid's adjusted correctly. You turn the vent to the off position so that the pressure will build up. You turn your cooker on by using one of the pre-programmed programs on the cooker, and you start it, and you'll see that it'll take 5 to 10 minutes for the pressure to build up. And then when that happens, and whenever you use your cooker after the pressure builds up, the time will start counting down on your digital read that you have on that unit.
Because that would mess me up. I would start it and see that it hasn't changed time, and it hasn't changed time, and it hasn't changed time, and I would think something's wrong.
Right, and most people who are new to using them, they think that when you read your recipe and it says it's going to be cooking for 20 minutes, that okay, in 20 minutes we can eat. That's not true, because when you turn it on, it's going to have time to build up the pressure inside that unit, and that's going to take anywhere from, it's just 5 to 10 minutes, depending upon what you're doing, that will build up that pressure, and then the cooking starts. So in reality, you've got that 20 minutes plus the time to build up the pressure, plus then pressure release. And in the cookers, we either do a natural pressure release, which we just leave it set, and it counts down to the cooking time, and then it just stays warm, and then the pressure just slowly releases out of the cooker. Or you can do a quick release, which means you are going to turn the vent on top to open up the cooker so that the steam can release out of the cooker. We do want to caution individuals when you do that quick release that you either don't do that with your bare hands, because it's hot steam that's coming out of there. We don't want you to burn yourself. We want to think about safety here. So either wear gloves like silicone oven gloves, or use maybe a wooden spoon,
okay,
or you can use a metal spoon to turn the unit so that you're not doing that with your hand and not
steam
touching
will
it.
come out.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And then also when you remove your lid from your cooker after everything's cooked, you want to pull the lid towards you so the steam will escape away from you. Those are some common sense things, but you know what? You just really need to hear it, and you need to follow those directions so that you don't get burned.
You even need to follow those if you're just, cooking something on the
Sure.
stove. I'm not real good at that. I'm not.
We
real
tend to want to peek, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Send you off your eyebrows.
So that's not good.
If someone has the old type pressure cooker, and I would imagine most older folks probably are used to using an old type pressure cooker, and that's what we're used to.
Right.
And the younger group is maybe getting into these electric pressure cookers. Mm-hmm. And I almost said Instapot, which is a brand name. It's an electric pressure cooker. Does it help to have known how to use a pressure cooker, or does that make a difference?
I don't think it really makes a difference. No, I really don't. I think, reading your care use guide, you can learn how to do it. There's some great websites that have tutorials on them and have videos on them. Your brand that you purchase, if you go to their website, they're going to have information for you. There's a lot of things out there to help you do this successfully. I think the biggest worry a lot of people have is they don't want to break it, or they're concerned about safety for it. And it's really very simple if you follow the directions. And it's basically use water. You have to use some kind of water in it, because that's what builds up the steam inside that creates the pressure that does the actual cooking. So you're tenderizing things as you cook them. And know that you have to have a countdown of time. One of the things I've noticed on the countdown on the models that I have is that the beep at the end of the countdown is not very loud. So in order that I don't miss that, especially if I don't want things to stay and have natural pressure release, I don't want it to stay in there and continue to cook or stay warm, I'll set my kitchen timer. So which is a lot louder, which I know, okay, it's time to go check the electric pressure cooker because the cycle's about done, and that's just a reminder to me. Now, if it's something that I'm preparing that, like a roast or something, it doesn't matter if it stays in there extra 10, 15 minutes, then, I don't worry about it. But eggs in particular, I always set my timer so that I know to go check those eggs, because I don't want them to overcook. I want them to not have that green ring around them, and enjoy them that way. So. And
you used the term hard-cooked eggs, which
cooked.
to me would be same as hard-boiled eggs.
Sure.
Right. Okay, you just don't have to put them in the water, watch them boil them well.
Right.
Okay.
And I actually did a test, Bill,
Now,
because I was curious, doing them in the pressure cooker, if it really saved me any time as doing it on the stovetop, and it only saved me about 5 minutes a time, but the product was so much better. And I didn't have to be there and watch, because when I hard cook eggs on the stovetop, I would put them in a pot, a cooking pot, with water covering them, about 1 inch of water over the top. I bring that to a boil. When that water starts to boil, I put the lid on the eggs, I turn the heat off, and I let them set for 15 minutes for large eggs. And then after that 15 minutes, then I put them immediately into ice water to cool them quickly, the eggs, just the eggs, into the ice water to cool quickly, and they set another 15 minutes, and then they're ready. So that really, when you talk about the water heating up, it really takes about 35 minutes to do. It didn't take any longer in the pressure cooker. It took the 5 minutes to build up the pressure. They cooked for 6 minutes. Then I took vented it. Then I put them in the ice water. So it would save me about 15 minutes on the cooking.
How do you do that? You put a little water in, and then the eggs stacked up?
It's about an inch or a cup, I think. It's about an inch of water in the pressure cooker that you put. And then you can utilize a stainless steel strainer to put your eggs like in a basket inside the cooker. Or you can put your rack in, which each cooker probably comes with a rack. Because some meats and things you'd want up out of the water. So you put your eggs on that rack, and you can kind of put them in a pyramid shape in there, inside the cooker. So more eggs on the bottom, and then less eggs and less eggs and less eggs, and you stack them up and cook them that way.
The whole thing with an electric pressure cooker also sounds more efficient. You know, the hard-boiled eggs, you're using a lot of water, and water is a commodity that we don't have enough of.
That's true.
But you're using very little water, really, in an electric pressure cooker.
Yeah, so it's very similar to what they do in commercial processing, the way you cook them in the electric pressure cooker. So that's why we enjoy them, and they're so easy to peel. And you know, if you get a hard-boiled egg or a hard-cooked egg that's hard to peel, you just kind of want to throw it away, right? It is frustrating.
Now, you can make all kinds of things in an electric pressure cooker, and we can't give a recipe because that's a little.
That's true, but just look online. There's a lot of great resources. We do want to encourage people to use their meat thermometers when cooking meat in the electric pressure cooker. At the end of the cooking cycle, check it for doneness. Follow the USDA guides, so the internal temperature for pork or beef or chicken, and make sure that it has reached the temperature, because the unit doesn't know that. The unit only knows how long it's cooked, at what pressure it's cooked. It doesn't know that it's actually done, okay? So that's a food safety guideline that we really want to encourage people to use their meat thermometers or some kind of food thermometer to check for doneness.
Okay, so I can make breakfast in it, I can make supper, I can make lunch.
Yep.
It sounds like a great tool to have in the kitchen.
Yep.
And as you mentioned in the last show, it replaces multiple small appliances.
It can, but also, as we mentioned in the last show, you've got to be willing to practice a little bit, to do some study, to read up on how to utilize it, to sort of rethink or reframe your thinking about how you're doing things in the kitchen. And for some, that's a challenge, because we're so used to grabbing this or grabbing that and throwing it in the pot, and there, supper's ready. So, if you want to invest some time up front, then, I think that learning curve gets better as you practice it and as you use it. But, or if you just like to be creative and have fun in the kitchen and try new things, then it's a great thing. But there is a cost to it, because I've seen prices anywhere from $50 to $300. So it's not an inexpensive small appliance that you want to consider. But we also want people to know that in these new electric pressure cookers, you are not to can foods. It is not to be used for canning. You need to use a pressure canner to cook, and those are not electric, and those are used on the stovetop. And the National Center for Home Food Preservation has an article that they've written about that, because it's an unsafe procedure to do, and you don't want to take the risk of poisoning your family with foodborne illness by doing canning improperly.
This is for cooking.
Cooking.
Not for canning.
Not for canning.
And can people call you?
Yeah.
If they say, I'm thinking of getting an electric pressure cooker, I have a question about it.
Bill, we get calls from time to time. Just last week I had a call from an individual who had watched one of your shows and requested the materials. So, just give us a call at 812-482-1782, And with your questions or your comments, or if you need more materials, or if you'd like to schedule a program for your organization or group, we'll be happy to try to accommodate you.
As always, Jan, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks, Bill.
And thank you for watching. We have had as our guest Jan Dougan. She is the Health and Human Sciences educator with Purdue Extension in DuBois County. We've been talking about electric pressure cookers. She is just a fountain of knowledge if you ever need to know things. Thank you for watching WJTS. We are local people watching local people.